Hey, this is my 5-minute summary of Richard Rohr's latest book, The Tears of Things. When I give a book summary, I like to give two. One is a shorter summary, just so that you can kind of get to know what it's saying. And one is a longer, more in-depth summary so that you can, well, I guess get to know even more of what it's saying. This is that shorter video. If you'd like to get to see the more in-depth video, take a more in-depth look for the longer summary on my channel. I have quite a few book summaries on my channel. That's kind of what I do. So if you'd like to hear good summaries of books that you should know about, I invite you to subscribe. Okay, this book is about the prophets. The subtitle of this book is Prophetic Wisdom for an Age of Outrage. And what you can get from that is that the main thrust of the book is what advice can the prophets give us in our current age of anger? First, Rohr explains spiritual development as going through stages of order, disorder, and reorder. You can think of an ordered state as being a state where we worship our traditions. This is a state where people will get mad at a church visitor for visiting and sitting in their seat. You have to do the Lord's Supper in the right way, or the color of the curtains really matter. Or in ancient Israel, you can think you have to make the correct sacrifices. Priests are the keeper of order. They like order. Order keeps everyone comfortable, or at least everyone in the majority. Because in our periods of order, we fall in love with money and power and being part of the majority. We find ways to be comfortable worshiping God while at the same time building ourselves up in finances, power, and status. God, however, speaks through those who suffer and who don't have. God has what Rohr calls a bias for the bottom. Also, during our periods of order, we are hesitant to blame the community for anything. We blame individuals so that we don't actually have to change a system which benefits the majority. Since the priests are keeper of the order, or in Protestant circles we might think of preachers, Christians get comfortable with order. This is why Rohr says, all throughout Christian history, we have gotten along so well with the dominant culture and the dominant power structures, when really we should be railing against them. The role of the prophet was to rail against them. It was to lead us into periods of disorder, a period where we lose our comforts and we are forced to realign ourselves. You could think of something grand like Israel's period of slavery in Egypt, or you could just think of something like a church going through a split. These are periods of disorder that force us to reevaluate. Once you emerge from a period of disorder, you arrive at a period of reordering. Rohr says you will always know a period of reorder because it's always more inclusive and more loving than the periods before it. In this book, Rohr goes through many of the prophets and shows us how they go through these periods or these stages. In the prophets, he talks about these periods of order, disorder, and reorder as equivalent to periods of anger, sadness, and hope, or hope and grace. So that when you're in a period of order, or when they're in a period of order, they're mad. Just like we are. We're mad at the world around us. Everyone seems to be so hateful. But the prophets grow, as should we, into a period of sadness. That is, they realize that all of these things that make them angry should really be making them sad. They are sad because they empathize with one another. Even those who people are on the other side and they take on their sadness. They are sad because people aren't acting like God created them to act. And this period of sadness is the period of disorder. But this period of sadness and disorder helps them to see that we're all in the same boat, and it leads them into this period of love and grace and acceptance for all. And that leads them to hope for a new future. The main thrust of this book is that in our sadness, this disordered part, we start to realize that we are part of the problem. We have to stop pointing our fingers. We start to realize that we scapegoat the poor and minorities like everyone else. We could say that in our current state, those on the political left start to see that they are just scapegoating as those on the political right and vice versa. And so what needs to happen is that we need to cry. Quite literally, we need to shed tears for ourselves and for the other side. And in that way, we can realize that we are all the same. We are all on one side. Only then, Rohr indicates, can we know the extreme love of God and that God accepts us even in our weaknesses. There is nothing we can do to earn God's love. God loves because that's who God is. Okay, that's my quick summary of the book. I'll have to go back and see if it's 5 minutes or less. Overall, I really liked it. I think that you should know that it's out there, if nothing else, and I think you should possibly read it if you have time. If nothing else, look for the longer video on my channel where we'll be able to get more into the details of the book and figure out how to get rid of this scapegoating or even to anti-scapegoat, as Rohr would say. And don't forget to subscribe.